Love your city, every back road, every alley, every pothole. Love your city, every back road. Come together, fight for your home.
What's up, everyone? This is Bob Dalton with the LYC podcast. Each episode, I interview people that are doing grassroots work in their communities. For this first episode, I really wanted to break down and give context to why I'm launching the LYC podcast and the LYC platform. My journey really started back in 2014 when my mom ended up living on the streets. And it was through her journey that inspired me to actually do something about homelessness. My attitude towards homelessness was, you should work harder, you're lazy, you should have made better choices with your life. But it was through her story, being the hardest working woman that I know, it was through her story that inspired me and really shifted my paradigm of understanding why people end up homeless or what people are going through in their lives. My mom has 2 college degrees. She's managed restaurants most of her life. She raised my sister and I by herself. It gave me a deeper level of compassion for people. So I came up with the idea that for every blanket that I sell, I'll donate a blanket to your local homeless shelter. And I was familiar with other 1-for-1 models. And after calling some homeless shelters and asking what they needed, and they said they needed blankets, I thought it would be interesting to evolve the 1-for-1 model and make it local, because homelessness is right here in our own backyard. You know, other 1-for-1 models, you buy a product and they provide a product somewhere to some, overseas or something. With this particular model with homelessness, I wanted people to be able to buy a product and we'll send a blanket down the street from where they live and help somebody in need. And so I came up with the idea and gave it a name, Sackcloth and Ashes. I named it Sackcloth and Ashes because it's ancient Jewish symbolism, which means mourning and repentance. And the concept of it was every time somebody wraps themselves in a blanket, it symbolizes mourning over the homeless population and repentance by contributing to a homeless shelter in their area. So right after I came up with the idea, I bought a sewing machine and a roll of fabric from Joann's Fabric. Shout out to Joann's. I still get the text messages with the coupon codes. And I realized very quickly that I can't sew. So I found a lady in my community who started making blankets for me. I'd put the blankets in my trunk. I was living in Oregon at the time, and I'd drive up the Oregon coast, walking into shops and being like, here's why you should buy these blankets over the blankets on your shelf, because I'm going to drive down to your local homeless shelter and donate all the blankets in my trunk. And so I got into like 20 shops out of 200, which really set the precedent of entrepreneurship. Like 1 out of every 10 things works out for you. And I started a website, sackclothandashes.com. And I really had no business strategy other than I'm going to post on Instagram once a day. So I started posting on Instagram once a day. And like 5 months into it, I launched the company June of 2014. In like November of 2014, I got an email from Instagram. And they're like, Bob, we love your story. We love what you're doing. We want to feature you on Instagram's Instagram account. And I didn't even know what that meant, but I looked it up and they had 42 million followers. So I was like, oh my God, got back to him and I was like, very interested in you posting about us. I don't even know what this means, but yes, and they were like, well, we love your story. Fill out a couple of these questions and everything. And they ended up posting about Sackcloth and Ashes the day before Black Friday in 2014. And the story went out to a lot of people. That was really our Kickstarter as a brand. And so here we are selling blankets and donating blankets, and, our story gets featured and we start growing, and we start growing in sales. We start growing on our media platform. And over the next 4 years, I really took an interest in growing the brand and the mission primarily through social media. So by 2018, we had a whole audience following our brand. And I was talking with my team, which was pretty small at the time still. We only had like 4 or 5 people on our team. After 4 years of hustling and building, and we decided to launch Blanket the United States, which is our campaign to donate 1 million blankets. And as Sackcloth and Ashes has grown, even up till now, we're doing about 15,000 blankets a month now. we've been able to go to different homeless shelters around the United States as we're sending out blankets. We donate to about 500 to 600 shelters in the US. But as we've been donating blankets, we've been able to go to some of these shelters and these programs to learn about the work that they're doing firsthand and do what's called a blanket drop. These blanket drops, I've been able to invite people into those experiences that live in those cities and those communities, executives from companies that we're partnered with, or people that have platforms and influence, invite them into the blanket drop to learn about the work that's going on in their communities. And I always walk away from a blanket drop experience learning about a program or a person, what they're doing in their community, and I'm always inspired. I'm always walking away going, man, how is this story not being shared? How is nobody picking up this story and promoting it through the media? The media is so issue focused and fear driven content. And it's been something that I feel like is universally becoming accepted, that nobody is a fan of media and where it lies right now, and the stories that are being told, and the fear that it's creating, and the mental illness that it's creating in society. Because my philosophy is that if we focus on issues, we're going to create more issues. If we focus on solutions, we're going to create a better society. It's become one of my kind of life goals and purpose, and a big part of my work. It's becoming a big part of my work, is that I want to tell the right stories and build a media platform that's highlighting and promoting people that deserve to be promoted, that are going to inspire, that are going to help bring insight to how we can do good work in our communities. And something that I learned from my dad, I only got to spend very little time with my dad. My mom and dad got divorced when I was 1. But the times that I would go and visit my dad, I always hear him say this one phrase. He would say it under his breath. He'd see something positive happening when I was with him, and he'd whisper under his breath, "That's a good thing." I thought that was so interesting that was the one main memory that I had of my dad. He was like, "That's a good thing." And he would say that all the time. That was his phrase. And so I feel like that's become a big part of my mission and my work, is that when I come across people doing good work, real good work in their community, dedicating their life to that work, that it's my opportunity to call that out and say, that's a good thing. So during the pandemic, all my travel stopped and I stopped doing blanket drops, and it gave me time to reflect on what I had been learning and what I've experienced over the last 5 years. A couple of things stood out to me. One is that there's a lot of people out there that want to make a difference and they don't know where to start. There's a lot of organizations and there's a lot of people that are doing good work that desperately need awareness and support. And so there is this interesting divide and gap between people that want to do something and organizations that need something to be done. And so I thought, man, it would be really interesting to create a platform that's going to connect people to local work that's going on in their communities. And so I came up with the name Love Your City and was able to get loveyourcity.com, loveyourcity.org, and started crafting what that could look like. At the same time period, during right in the beginning of the pandemic, I emailed a bunch of leaders in my network and was just like, hey, I know that, I might not be able to do much, but I just want to offer support at this time. If there's anything that I can do, let me know. And I got a call from, at the time, the CEO of World Market, Jack Schwiffel. He was like, Bob, as a matter of fact, we're going to be shutting down temporarily all of the Cost Plus World Market locations in the United States. Can you send me your database of homeless shelters? We want to mobilize all of the food and resources to women and children's programs in the US. And so my team, within 48 hours, we got World Market, the database of different shelters and programs and everything, and was able to help contribute to Cost Plus World Market mobilizing a lot of those resources and food and everything, which was such a huge eye-opener to the power of having a database. And so I'm piecing all of this together, and I'm like, man, I want to build a really strong, well-curated database of nonprofits in the US and create a website, loveyourcity.org, that's going to allow people that want to make a difference to get connected to the work that's going on in their community, not just through a search engine, but through high quality content and storytelling and good journalism and video content and really help people understand what's going on in their communities. I feel like that's one of the biggest opportunities right now and the biggest divide of people taking action. It's not that people don't want to take action, it's that they don't know what is the most appropriate way to take action. What's going on around them? Who are the helpers? And really figuring out a creative way to get involved. And I think that where we're at as a society, it's like we're driving to work and we'll see somebody holding a sign on the sidewalk and we take note of that. We know that that's not right. We know that we want to help. A lot of people want to help. Some people don't, but a lot of people do. And we make note of that. And we go through this conversation internally and we're like, oh, should I give them money? Should I stop and have a conversation with them? And, we're wrestling through all of these questions and internally. And then by the time we finish that conversation, we're at work and we moved on through our day. And I think that it's not that people don't want to make a difference. A lot of people do. We just don't know what the most effective strategy and the appropriate thing to do. And so I want to dedicate the rest of my career and my work, my life's work beyond my career to helping people figure out what's going on around them. Help give them an opportunity to make a difference on a local level. Local has been such an interesting thing that's become a part of my focus because at this point, I am convinced that if we're going to move the needle on any massive problem that we're dealing with, these national, massive, seemingly unattainable goals of helping these problems, we have to do it on a local level. It's got to be individuals stepping up, taking initiative, taking responsibility for their local communities. That's how we're going to be able to move the needle. The power of local as well is that when you're dealing with these large problems in our communities, they look different. Our approaches look different, and helping them, how we approach homelessness in San Diego is going to look different on how we're going to approach homelessness in New York, which is going to look different on how we approach homelessness in Denver. There's different strategies to help. There's different ways to approach it. Every city is different. And so on a local level, these issues have to be addressed. And I want to inspire people to take action locally. I think the other benefit of the local focused aspect of this and what I'm hoping to inspire is that I'm out to prove that the more that we can keep resources locally, we're going to be able to have a better shot at solving these problems. Right now, when people want to make a difference, they're very quick to help or Google, I want to make a donation, and all of these large national institutional nonprofits pop up in the ranking system. And it doesn't give us the ability to contribute locally. When we support national or international work, that is a good thing. But the more resources, we have to also know that the more resources that we eject out of our communities, that if you're a small or mid-sized community, those resources aren't coming back. And I believe that that's what's creating this competitive mindset amongst nonprofits, is that the nonprofits are relying on philanthropy dollars and they're relying on corporate money to survive and be sustainable. So if we can inspire and get hundreds of thousands of people to give locally, to keep resources locally, to take action locally, that we actually have a shot at changing our community and making a more sustainable community long term. I'm less interested in one-time events. I'm less interested in one-time giving. If we want to create a long-term sustainable community, it's going to take people taking responsibility consistently for their local community. Recently, I was walking my dog and I got home from a long walk, the normal route we do. And I have a little husky named Kyra. And she was limping around. And I was like, oh man, I wonder why she's limping around. And I look at her paw and there's a little piece of glass in her paw. So I thought, oh man, I need to start paying attention more on my walks of where I'm walking, where I'm going. And the next time I go for a walk, I notice we're walking across the right side of this little bridge that we walk over, and there's shattered glass all over that side of the bridge. I was like, oh man. So I took note of it and I walked to the other side of the bridge and I walked around it and I kept on walking. And I did this for weeks. I would come up to the glass. I'd notice it. It became subconscious. I just would walk to the other side of the street, right, as I would walk up to it. And it became habit. And so I did that for weeks. And then eventually I walk up to this glass and I'm like, well, why the hell am I not picking up this glass? Like, this glass is literally, and if you do a bird's eye view of our community, of all the people that are walking their dogs and stuff, you see all these people like walking across the street, walking around the glass and continuing on their journey, like doing a U-shape walk across the bridge. And finally I was like, I should probably just pick up this glass. And so I took note of that. And it's funny because on a subconscious level, I'm like, well, I'm not the guy that broke this glass. And I'm like, the city should be picking this up. You know, I'm coming up with all the reasons why I shouldn't be the one to have to pick up this glass. This isn't my thing. That I didn't cause this glass to be broke, and it's not even my responsibility to pick up this glass. I'd like to say that in this part of the story and analogy that I went home and got a broom and picked it up, but I didn't. I waited another day. And so I'm walking again. I'm like, oh crap, the glass again. And as I'm walking up to the glass, and I'm not making this up, there's a guy on the other side of the bridge. And this is the first time this ever happened to. I got my headphones on. This guy's like waving his arms at me. And I look across at him and I take my headphones off. I'm like, what's up? He's like, watch out for that glass. That is glass right there. You're walking up on the glass. I'm like, now people are warning me about the glass. And so finally I got a broom and cleaned it all up. But I feel like we're at a place right now in society where there's shattered glass everywhere. And it's not glass that we have caused. And it's easy to point the finger and blame the city and the government and religious organizations or whatever, that it's their responsibility. It's their problem that they should fix. And all of that might be true, that you didn't cause it, and that it is somebody's responsibility to step up and help fix it in a creative, effective way. But that's not always going to be the case. And we have an opportunity to be the ones that step up and clean up the glass and to help fix problems and be a part of the solution. If we're always going to be pointing the finger and thinking that it's everyone else's fault and it's everyone else's problem, we're not going to experience progress. And so my hope with launching this podcast is that I want to shine the spotlight on the people that are doing the work, that are stepping up and they're cleaning up glass in their community. And it's not something that they're complaining about. They're just doing it and they're making progress. And so I want their perspective and I want their input and I want the lessons that they're learning from stepping up and contributing on a local level. Nobody is perfect. Nobody has the perfect solution. But I admire and respect so much the people that are trying to do something and that we have something to learn from them. We have something that we can glean from them to say, hey, you know what? I want to do something on a local level. I want to step up and make a difference and do it in a creative way. So I'm going to be interviewing some of the best grassroots leaders in the United States that I have personally have come across in my journey. We're going to learn about their work. We're going to learn about their perspective on the city. We're going to learn about how their society is working in their community. And we're going to be learning about lessons that they have learned along the way. I think it's going to be incredibly inspiring to hear their stories. I've already recorded the first 4 episodes. It's already changed me and my perspective, and things that I've been able to learn from them have been profound. I think you guys are really going to enjoy these conversations. Last thing I want to say is I'm launching loveyourcity.org as a platform because I don't just want to be somebody out preaching that we should all make a difference and that you should give locally. I want to provide some aspect of a solution for you to be able to do that. And so loveyourcity.org, you're able to search your city, find what grassroots work in organizations and just good work that's going on around you, and find creative ways to get involved. You can donate to these organizations. You can fill out a volunteer form and get involved. And overall, I really want more people to step up and say, hey, you know what? I want to be a contributor. You know, in a world that is filled with consumers, I want people to step up and say, I want to be a contributor. And I think we're going to move the needle. And I think that the time has come for a new opportunity to bring narratives of people that are doing good work and focused on solutions. There's a lot to learn here from these people. And I'll preface and say that I don't think I'm the one that's going to change homelessness and I'm going to change all of these problems. But I want to use my platform and my voice to highlight the people that are. And that's what this podcast is about. So I hope you enjoy listening to the Love Your City podcast. I'm in this for the long run. I'm committed. And even though I'm not the best host or the best interviewer, that's not what this is about. This is about giving the people that are doing the work an opportunity to speak. And there's so much to learn. So appreciate you going on this journey with me. Really looking forward to this next year and the people that we're going to hear from. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Love Your City podcast. If you want to find ways to get involved in your community, you can visit loveyourcity.org. If you have any questions or recommendations of grassroots leaders or nonprofits that we should be aware of, email us at media@loveyourcity.org.